This week, 100 grand HiFi takes on a live performer. Plus, should you be buying a video mobile? And we celebrate the mother of all personal stereos.
Tonight we're delving into the black art of HiFi, which, as I'm sure you know, means high fidelity, a term coined in the 1950s to suggest faithfulness to its original recording. But what we want to know is exactly how good are really, really expensive systems.
Our grand challenge is to see if I can tell the difference between an entry-level system, a live performance, and an ultimate HiFi costing £100,000. But before we get to that, you need to realise there's more to life than just turning everything up to 11.
Accuracy is HiFi's holy grail, a system that neither adds nor takes away anything from the original sound, leaving it just as the artist originally intended. The only problem is, accuracy doesn't come cheap.
This shop contains £1 million worth of ultimate HiFis. That should give you an idea of the standard being set. Take the £25,000 Krell CD player, for example. To minimise laser scatter and deliver a truer sound, pressing play also activates an electronic shutter. Ultimate speakers come in three forms. These £44,000 Wilson Max 2s are earthquake-inducing Hollywood spec. The Sonus Faber Stradivari were 9 years in development and are hand-built by the son of a piano maker. Rather than being just a box full of parts, these £22,000 speakers are shaped like a lute and tuned like an instrument. You don't just hear the music being played, you hear the fingers striking the keys. Then there's Martin Logan's electrostatic speakers. Rather than trying to blend separate woofers and tweeters, the sound comes out of a single piece of mesh. Only a handful of people in the world own the top-of-the-range model, costing 65 grand. Join us later for a real-life test to see if spending a fortune is worth it.
No, it really is an awful lot of money.
But that's what the big mobile phone companies paid the government 4 years ago for the right to use certain radio frequencies, ones they need for so-called third generation or 3G mobile phones.
It's easy to see why they were so excited. 3G promises to do fantastic things for your mobile. By giving it what amounts to a fast broadband internet connection, it creates a tantalising new mobile world, full of video on demand, high-speed, always-on internet access, interactive gaming, full-sized emails. Who wouldn't want all of that? Trouble is, 4 years on, and we're still waiting for most of it to happen.
So far, only one network, 3, actually has 3G phones on the market.
This is one of their latest handsets, and it's quite good, actually. It's scarcely any bigger than a normal phone. It's got a modern clamshell design, it's got a video camera, flash, and everything. Much better than the sort of bricks you got when you joined 3 at the start. So what does it do exactly?
So far, 3 are restricting their service to a small selection of downloads like news reports and movie trailers, plus useful maps, at prices from 10 to 50p a go.
The quality of the video is actually surprisingly good, though I wouldn't buy one of these phones specifically for it. But what about 3's much hoped-for killer application, mobile video calling?
Making a video call is as straightforward as making an ordinary one. Simply dial in the number and select the video call button. You can twizzle your phone's camera, either to look at something you want to show the person at the other end or to look at you, and to check that you're in shot, you appear in a small box on the screen. There's a built-in loudspeaker to hear the reply, but you're far better off using the supplied headset. Calls cost 50p a minute, and the video network covers 75% of the population.
Personally, I find the idea of being on show during a phone call rather disconcerting, and catching me in the bath would be bad news for anybody. But I can see that there are some uses for video calling.
Look, Granny, it's your new granddaughter.
Are you sure you've got to work late? It's just I've got nothing on tonight at all.
Doctor, yeah, I was wondering if you could take a look at this. I've got this rash down here.
One of the earliest applications of video calling, albeit with satellite phones, was in the battlefield, allowing war correspondents to file live reports. We thought we'd do a bit of hands-on testing of our own to see how well 3's video mobiles perform under fire.
My colleague Dan has gamely volunteered to file a report on his video mobile while being chased round the woods by this load of angry paintballers. Right, Dan, have you got your phone? OK, off you go! Now, we've already got the line up and running, and so that you can see what's going on, we've attached a camera to this piece of apparatus here, and you can see Dan's report on this screen. I can see you, just about. Can you hear me?
Yes, picking you up loud and clear, John.
Right.
There's a bit of a battle going on.
Excellent, good. First thing you notice, the picture comes in a whole load of steps, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to be quite smooth. Is yours like that?
It's quite jumpy, and very blurred the background as you move.
Yeah, and it's also, there's quite a delay on the sound. It's almost like a sort of second or two. I keep having not to interrupt you.
Delay is a bit annoying. I think we're stuck with it.
Oh dear. Can you
I'm
do
on the
it?
run, John. Got to answer. I've been shot, John.
Good, excellent, well done. See if we can get one of those, get one of those fighters fairly close up. Take a risk. It's only paint.
I'm right next to a tank now.
A tank? What do you mean a tank? We're in a wood in Solihull.
Under our demanding test conditions, the picture and sound weren't great, and though video calling might be useful occasionally, current mobile phones can't really show off 3G's capabilities to full effect. For that, you'll need a laptop and one of these, Vodafone's 3G data card. You slip it in the side of your computer, and once you're logged on, it offers wireless connection at near broadband speed. The only problem is that at the moment the coverage is rather limited, about 30% of the population. But 3G phones definitely aren't a fad. 20 million people in Japan already have them. And over here, all the networks will soon be offering a range of 3G services. And then we should start to see all the internet, video and email capabilities the companies paid that £23 billion for.
I reckon it won't be long before 3G phones really do offer everything they promised us. And then we'll all be wondering how we ever survived without them. Dan, calm down, it's the Gadget Show.
OK, we're back on the trail of ultimate hi-fis, finding out just how good mega expensive systems really are. Should you believe the hype? Well, Jason's gone up north to find out.
Glasgow, in Strathclyde, in Scotland, in Britain, has a fine manufacturing heritage of shipbuilding, textiles and heavy engineering. And you can add to that HiFi.
This is the state-of-the-art factory belonging to Lynn, who know a thing or two about making good hi-fis. Now, you didn't hear it from me, OK? But customers include Madonna, David Bowie, Paul McCartney, Prince Charles, and even Aston Martin. The new DB9 comes with a Lynn stereo as standard. Pay an extra £3,000 and you can upgrade to a whopping 950-watt system. The Lynn story started when Ivor Tiefenbrunn was so disappointed with a newly bought record player that he decided to build one himself. The Sondek, voted by some as sounding better than CD. It's fully suspended, so never skips, and has been dubbed the most important piece of hi-fi in the world. So, how on earth do they make such good components?
This is Lynn's sister company, and it's where the whole process begins. Over there, they're building, missiles. We're not allowed to film them. In the corner, they're building parts for the new Joint Strike Fighter. And next to that, they're building hi-fis. This is a solid block of aluminium. Now, you put it in here, inside £250,000 worth of Japanese cutting machine, and after just 1.5 hours, you get this, the base of a Lynn amplifier. A thing of beauty.
A hi-fi machine to military-grade tolerances, all in a bid for musical accuracy.
Now, of course, one of the things that sets Linn apart from other manufacturers is that they make all their own components. I mean, look at this. You'll probably recognise it when it's in place. It's actually the CD loading mechanism. But the customer's never going to see this. It's just pure workmanship.
Now, of course, not all of us can afford a hi-fi made in such a high-tech facility. So here's a few tips for making your own hi-fi that bit more ultimate. The first is to clean your connectors. You'd be surprised how quickly they become oxidised. The second is to make sure your speakers don't rock or wobble. And the third is don't put your speakers in the corner. And why don't you put speakers in corners? Because if I stand here, I sound artificially bassy. Whereas if I stand here, I sound normal. Remember, it's accuracy you're after. Why add bass if it wasn't in the original recording?
Now, if I've learned anything today, it's the importance of the hi-fi hierarchy, by which I mean where you should spend your money. Most people, when they want to upgrade their hi-fi, spend the money on speakers. Don't. Spend your money on a source. It's crucial that your source, your CD player, tuner or record player is as good as you can afford. The next most important is your amplifier. And then finally, at the bottom end of the hierarchy, your speakers.
Which brings us to our challenge. This is the 2000 watt per channel Ultimate Linn system. You get 25 grand speakers, a 12 grand CD player and 8 power amplifiers worth £6,000 each. Including a professional install, you're looking at £97,500. On the other hand, the entry-level system is 75 watts per channel, and with these speakers, it's a £1,600 setup. You've seen the precision engineering, but will either system fool me into thinking I'm listening to a live performance? Join us later.
Of the millions of gadgets that have come and gone, only a few have managed to achieve iconic status. And these are the genuine articles that spawned 1,000 imitators, changed our lives forever, and gave us new household names. For these legends of technology, we've created the Gadget Hall of Fame. There can be no dispute about our first entry, the Sony Walkman. Before this, there was no such thing as a personal stereo. Since its launch, the sales of personal cassette players, CDs, mini discs, and now MP3 players has run into billions. And it all started with this little box.
You are witnessing the ultimate miniaturization of the cassette player, the creation of microcircuitry, the smallest motor of its kind, the reinvention of the wheel. You are witnessing the birth of the Super Walkman from Sony. Never has so much genius been coaxed into so little space.
The Sony Walkman came about pretty much by accident. One of Sony's top bosses asked a colleague to knock him together a high-quality tape recorder so that he could listen to his classical music on planes in full, glorious stereo. Sony's chairman got wind of his request and, after having taken the result home for the weekend in the spring of 1979, said he wanted it on the shelves in just 4 months. The fact that the Walkman could only play and not record led many people to predict that it would be a terrible failure. And the doubters seemed to be proved right when after a month on the market only 3,000 sets had been sold. But then Sony sent their younger staff out on buses and trains to music festivals, shopping centres and schools, offering anybody who asked the chance to listen to the quality. Freebies were given to pop stars so it would appear cool by association. It worked, and for the next 6 months, shops were constantly sold out. By the time it was launched worldwide, word of mouth had hyped it to such proportions that everybody wanted one. Even Cliff Richard's attempts to get in on the act didn't put a dent in sales.
It's music I found as I'm wired for sound.
Within a year, the name Walkman was synonymous with personal stereos, and within 6 years, Walkman had entered the Oxford Dictionary. By 1995, 150 million had been sold, with well over 300 different models. But it could have all been so different. Originally, Sony felt the name Walkman was a bit Japanesey for us Westerners. Our favourite personal stereo was very nearly called the Sony Soundabout.
Right, we're back at the offices of Stuff magazine for some more inside info from editor Tom Dunmore. This week, Tom's favourite websites.
I'm going to start off with my homepage, which, like many other people's homepage, is Google. There are a few little things that you might not know that you can do with Google. The ability to define words. If we put in gadget, you'll find lots of definitions, my favourite of which is down at the bottom, a device that is very useful for a particular job. In terms of my work, one of the ones I use a lot is the imaging resource. This is all about cameras and camcorders. Part of it is the comparison service, the comparometer. Now here you have loads and loads of digital cameras. They've taken the same pictures with each one and they put them all online. If we, for example, take a very simple, cheap camera, the Canon PowerShot A10, and then compare it to a more expensive camera such as Nikon's D70 digital SLR. The first thing you see is just how much higher resolution there is on the Nikon camera. But you can also compare the details, the colours, and get a real idea of which is the camera you should go for. One of my favourite sites is the iPod Lounge. You get a lot of tips and tricks and, more importantly, reviews the accessories. There's so many accessories out there for the iPod. Things like the iTrip from Griffin. It's essentially a small FM transmitter so that when you're in your car, you can listen to your iPod through the car stereo. Unfortunately, it is actually illegal in the UK because that essentially means you're setting up a pirate radio station. Another site that I use is Babelfish. Now, Babelfish is a language translation. You can ask a question of it. If I wanted to say hello and welcome to the Gadget Show in Italian, what I'd say is ciao e benvenuto. No, I'm not even going to bother, actually. But at least I'd be able to write it to somebody. They are my bookmarks, or at least the ones that I'm willing to show you.
It's time to find out just how accurate HiFi can be. Jason is about to be played the same piece of music 3 times. He has to guess which is a basic system, which is an ultimate system, and which is a live performance.
Our live performer couldn't just be some manufactured pop star. We needed a guaranteed pitch-perfect tune, first time. So, meet Ian Bruce, one of Scotland's favourite folk singers. Naturally, I had to be blindfolded, which was checked with a flinch test. Swines. Hey? Then it was into the testing chamber for the first listen, the £1,600 entry-level system.
Now listen winds and slaughtering guns, bring autumn's pleasant weather.
First reaction is the man's got an amazing voice. There's absolutely no static hiss to my ears. The sort of signals that I'm looking for when I'm trying to decide whether it's real or whether it's coming through a speaker system of some sort. But there was a punch to it that made me feel it was coming through some form of machine.
I was on the right lines. Okay. Performance number 2 would be Ian singing live.
Now whistling winds and slaughtering guns, bring autumn's pleasant weather, and the moon shines bright when I rove at night, to muse upon my charmer.
If that is not a live singer, then it doesn't matter how much it costs, I'm going to buy one. I'm utterly convinced that man is standing in front of me. I'm also convinced that I want to hire him for my wedding. The quality I just heard felt real because there was nothing else but the man's voice. There was nothing else to distract me. There was no punch that signalled some form of synthesis. It was organic.
Theoretically, nothing can sound as good as live because the recording process always adds an atmosphere. The final experiment would be with the £100,000 ultimate system. Okay. How much like the real thing could it sound?
The western winds and slaughtering guns bring autumn's pleasant weather. The moon calls springs on whirring wings among the blooming heather.
Okay, very interesting. There was no start or stop. I know that might sound strange, but in the first experience I had in this room, there was a sense that the sound had started in a way that wasn't, to my mind, natural. And the same with the end. In this experience, the third time I've heard this guy singing, his voice just began. The bass element to his voice, in a sort of non-technical sense, was incredibly clear. It was almost edible. I could feel the sound in front of me. My guess is as follows. Experience number 1 was the entry-level system. Experience number 2 was the live singer. And experience number 3 was the ultimate experience.
That's 3 out of 3.
Wow, that's amazing. Is that you?
I do.
Great voice, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely stunning.
So when are you getting married?
We'll talk about that.
The ultimate system had an all-enveloping sound, but most impressive was the stone-dead hum-free silence during the pauses. But although it costs 60 times more than the entry-level system, I don't think it's 60 times better. However, if you value the last few % of accuracy highly enough, and 1,000 people a year do, then the truth is you'd happily fork out. Live was best, but this was damn close. This week, we're making movies with camcorders. Building a heads-up display for...
The HTC Vive allows you to physically move around in a set space. Your cleared-out living room, for example, and has something called Chaperone,